You might just be in front of the people. Yeah, I think, I don't know if he has one. I don't think they're on. They didn't let me know. Yeah, we have it all. Is it? Oh, maybe mine is wrong. It says 4 or 5, so I'm thinking it'll be better, so we don't. It's typing too. There you go. You're able to ask. Oh, it's high, yeah. Am I, oh, sorry. You didn't hear somebody who was mentioned it? No, I thought.
I think she just pulled in.
Oh, good, okay.
He has a Jeep?
Yeah, yet I don't know.
Yeah, there.
Yeah, he does. There you
Ah, good morning.
Did you just wake up?
It's so bright.
Okay. Call the meeting to order at 6:02. Please rise for.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, call.
Olivia Pajero,
Here.
Vito Campanelli,
There.
Winifred Rodriguez, Shannon Johnson, Marge Jubicek, Sharon Anderson, George Clark.
Here. Moving on with public comment. Sorry.
Okay. Good evening. I'm joining the meeting via telephone. You automatically appear on our list of meeting attendees. During public comment, the meeting moderator will call out the last 2 digits of your phone number in the order they appear in the meeting. At that time, if you wish, when the last 2 digits of your number is called, you will be able to make a public comment. Please press *6 to unmute yourself at that time. If you don't say anything when your number is called, we will wait 5 seconds going on to the next number. Anyone wishing to make a public comment will have 3 minutes to speak. After the, you will be alerted that your time is up and will then be returned to a muted state. Anyone joining this must remain muted outside of their designated speaking time. For anyone using Google Meet, please check the chat box for the moderator's instructions on making public comments. I received 1 public comment, so I'll just read that. Favor, resident. Good evening, board. I am concerned regarding the hiring of 4 more nurses to the extent of almost $400,000, including benefits. The one nurse hired last week. All of this money with no kids in school until at least the first day of the year. All this money when the nurse's age you fired last month only cost the district less than half that amount. How does this make sense? Also, why the elaborate facial recognition system for adults when handheld thermometers would accomplish what needs to be done? The machines look like metal detectors and are not necessary at $30,000. Was an evaluation performed for the superintendent? When did the board meet and do goals? I see communication as a goal. Please, there is very little to none now, and communication has been a goal for years. The well of communication is dry. If there is little communication with the board, what can the public expect? Please get this goal back on track. When will meetings be open for public attendance again? I personally know how tough some meetings can be, but as I said last month, put on the big person britches and have meetings in the cafe at GW. That's what we will say over the board. That's all for written public comment. Scott?
At this time, I will read off the area code followed by the last 2 digits for phone numbers. When I read your digits, please unmute yourself if you wish to make a comment. We will wait 5 seconds before moving on to the next. To start, 708-21. Area code 708, ending in 30.
Hello, everybody. It's Tom Weiner, parent. I got a question about these infrared machines you're going to be getting for people to walk through the schools during this crisis. A couple of things. One, the quote says you're buying 5 and there is 6 schools. So which school is not going to have one? And also, why is it being considered an emergency type situation when nobody's going to be in the schools until maybe November at the earliest? So it's not really an emergency because you got time. So it should be taken off the board and off for a vote and actually be bidded out so we can get other bids and maybe if we're going to go buy them, get them for a cheaper price. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
All right, next we have area code 708, ending in 49. Next, we have area code 708 ending in 73. Next, we have area code 708 ending in 91. And lastly, we have area code 708 ending in 96.
Hello.
Hi,
Tony,
yes.
Tony
Okay,
Parker. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Tony.
Hello. My comment is concerning the action item with the superintendent's performance-based goals. 105 ILCS 5/10-23.8 specifies that these goals should be linked to student performance and academic improvement within district schools. Those particular goals, it is not obvious how they are linked. Also, in addition to these goals, the statute mentions that there should be indicators of the student performance and academic improvement that the board is going to use, and nowhere in that resolution, etc., are those indicators mentioned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
708 ending in 73, briefly unmuted. Did you have a comment? All right, that would appear to be all for public comments. There were no takers in the chat.
Okay, moving on.
I have a question. George, right, just fill me in here. Are you not supposed to be a resident or a part of the community in public comment?
Yeah, to my knowledge, she moved out of town, unless I heard she was in Florida, so I don't know that's.
I don't believe that our policy says that.
Well, no, that's not what I'm saying, I'm just saying.
No, but
she's
you
not a
actually, you have to be a
resident of the
community
area,
member.
So that's my answer to that, but I don't know whether or not that's something that we can look into.
But it's not that there. Yeah, but the board is also letting people who were non-residents before. Not gonna say either way, but we have done that unless business owners speak.
Okay. That's good, first. Moving on, looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
comments?
Are any of the nurses that are on here, the 4 nurses, are any of them from Maxim?
No,
They're all-
that would be done on, not on, this type of.
No, I mean, are we hiring them away from Maxim?
I believe we might need 1 from Maxim. So we were able to get 5 employed by us. None of these are from Maxim.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, we didn't steal them from them, like, they didn't quit working
No.
for Maxim and
No.
come to work for us.
That's correct. Call the roll.
Okay, Olivia Quintero,
Yes.
Vito Capodelli,
Yes.
Winifred Rodriguez,
Yes.
Shannon Johnson,
Yes.
Marge Ubica.
Yes.
Sharon Anderson,
Yes.
George Torres.
Yes. Motion passed.
Could I ask, before we walk, could I ask a question about, now that they've been hired officially? Were the teachers that we hired here, were they allowed to come to?
Yes.
Good, okay. So, I was,
Was today the first day?
That's correct, yes. It went very well. It went very well.
do you think maybe at the next meeting we'll get a report that that's how everything went?
Sure. Yes.
And maybe what the program is, what we're doing with the schools, because we haven't had a report on what the whole board about what our program is.
Okay, moving on with action items. Action item 8, looking for a motion to approve the resolution to adopt performance goals with the superintendent's employment contract. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any comments?
I have a couple questions. So generally the superintendent's goals are created off of the board goals. We haven't even discussed board goals this year. So if we don't know what our goals are, how can the superintendent make his goals? And also on top of that, we don't know if he met his goals for last year because we have yet to evaluate it. So how can we approve goals if we haven't set any, we haven't even discussed them, and we don't know where to stand from the year that he was with us, give or take year.
Well, it's not necessarily something that derives from our goals. I mean, we have.
No, it is exactly something that derives from our goals. And if we would have met, or if you remember when we met with IAF, we set our goals previously.
That
That's
all
what
the
happened.
things up, and, we talked about the superintendent as well during that time.
Right, but we did that a year ago for last school year, we set goals. We didn't even discuss goals for this year. So, you know, were any of our goals met? Do some of those goals need to be changed? You know, we haven't even discussed them, so how can he set his goals? We're tying his hands to something that he needs direction from us, and we haven't given it.
And also, I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we meet when we met with IES?
Yeah.
Didn't we meet and we came up with the superintendent's goals together as a board?
We,
No, you said ours.
Or
well,
we
we
set our
said ours,
goals,
but
and then he,
we had a conversation about the superintendent's goals as well.
That was last year though.
Yeah,
right, we
that
have to do it every year, right?
the timing was, what time was that when we met for those goals? Is it like, remember?
No, well, we were a little late last year because things, we were a little late last year, but I could understand us being late last year, there was no reason to be late this year.
Well, with everything going on, I'm pretty sure that,
Well, we've had all these special meetings, though, we could have had a Zoom call to discuss goals, even if it were something as simple as,
they,
hey, this is how, where we stand with last year's goals, let's keep them again. We didn't even do that.
And the Illinois School Code does say performance goals should match up to some student performance, and these don't. I don't know who put these together, where they came from. The other thing is we've not had an evaluation, and our board policy says that we're supposed to at least annually, it could be more than that, evaluate the superintendent. And I agree with Sharon. We don't have a copy of his goals. We didn't get a hard copy from before, so we don't know. I don't remember what the goals were, but we didn't have a meeting to see and that would be an evaluation meeting to see, what was accomplished. Does the goal really have to be changed? Does it have to be enhanced? Maybe he was completed the goal, and so we would eliminate it. I don't see how we can vote on goals that, one, the board didn't participate in, and two, we haven't evaluated to see what the goals from last year were.
It's a service to him. There's nothing you can do for it, it's like, give them the service to him.
Could we not just set up something, a Zoom with ISB, and get it over and done with?
How does everyone else feel like, because we can just put forward, just agree or disagree? We're not breaking any laws or anything like that, so it's not like, I'm not pushing to get any of this stuff done, but we need some direction as well, so.
Do we need IESB involved?
Our own goals,
For our goals,
but
we
you don't
have.
necessarily have to have IESB, you have to have somebody that runs the goals. But I think the concern here is that we don't have any, we didn't do an evaluation, and who put, I mean, the board has the right to know, who put those goals together? And are they based off of what you had last year? Were any of those goals completed? And I mean, sometimes they don't get completed because they're kind of open-ended and they take more than just a year to get through. But I'm just saying, I agree with Sharon, I don't think that there's enough here. We haven't evaluated to see where he is to move on. And that's part of our policies and the Illinois school code, you know, that there's a question of performance. Do those performance goals, are they tied to student performance? And I'm not sure that all of them do, but there's nothing in here that says, you know, excuse me, that, there's an expectation of something that kids are supposed to accomplish that comes under, because the superintendent is, the buck stops with him, and so he is the educational leader for the whole school. And, I don't think this, I don't think one is really fair to him. We haven't done our job, and based on this, who put these goals together? Where did they come from?
Well, can I say something?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hi, Felicia.
Just so that everyone is aware of the time frame, you may be, and I'm not, if you do know it, I hope I'm not insulting you, but typically in May and June, you do, the board will evaluate the progress toward the superintendent's goals, and then they'll determine if they have to change anything internally or externally to assist them in meeting the goals. And then also around that same time frame, the board and the superintendent will agree on district goals for the year. And then you typically June and July, around that time frame, the superintendent can come up with goals which support the district goals. And then what happens is the board can approve the goals or work with him typically to change some of the goals. And then they'll also talk about indicators of success and then any additional expectations they may have. I think that unfortunately what has happened, and I'm not using it as an excuse, but I just think because of everything that's going on, you're not the first district to kind of be behind as far as the timing of what needs to be done. So while it's not necessarily wrong for the superintendent to present the board with goals right now, I do think it's important to note that this may just be the first step for you guys to look at, determine, if you're going to, what indicators you want to use and reach, to be able to measure whether he's met the goals. But you do need to evaluate him before you move on. Now, I don't keep up with districts as far as whether or not they've followed these timeframes, not unless you ask. So I will say to you, though, even though, you may be behind and you're not the only ones, that you do need to evaluate before you can move on to officially approve the goals. So I don't think there's anything wrong with them presenting them to you, but you really can't do anything with them if you haven't evaluated his goals from last year.
I have a question, it's wintertime.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, the goals were done like in November, correct? Something like that?
Those were the goals.
November, right. And then you figure if it was October, November, December, January, February, it can't really be judged or evaluated from what happened from March to the end of the school year because that wasn't his fault.
Well, it's not taken into account when you evaluate.
That's right, yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody's gonna be like, you didn't, you know, we all know school can go off the money. So Chris started working for us like May of last year. So we can evaluate him from May till June, or May till March. And if I'm not mistaken, Chris, I believe it's in your contract as well, that you're supposed to be getting a yearly evaluation.
Yeah, and then that's what I want to talk about briefly, Felicia, is that the superintendent goals never got, they were, when I first signed my contract, they said refer to Appendix A, and it exclaimed that these would be done at another time, and those never got inserted. So I never had superintendent goals last year. We did do board goals.
Right, and then we were supposed to meet and give feedback in December, and then that meeting got canceled, and we got to January, and then shortly after that, all hell broke loose. So we,
Yeah, so
that's
again,
exactly what I got.
to improve your goals now, I mean, to approve them, I mean, to look at them and reference, you know, see them is one thing, but to approve them, again, would be a huge disservice to you, because you're kind of floundering in the water by yourself right now.
Well, I think that's what Felicia said, that we could take a look at them, there's nothing wrong with taking a look at them, but it's not appropriate to approve them now. We haven't done an evaluation, any kind of evaluation, and we should have done that. And if you know, I think if you want to show this to us now, but we have time then to, do an evaluation and then come, you know, then approve these goals. My question still remains, who put the goals together? Who?
I worked on them with, the IASA attorney, and that assistant.
And it's a shame that you had to do that on your own without any real guidance. I mean, from us, and for goals, for previous goals set for you, so.
And I don't know any different, so, you know, it's my first time going around, so
That's part of you coming from Indiana, you're not 100% sure.
So I think that we need to tie, like Lisa said, the indicators into these goals, right? This is how they're gonna be measured. So is that something we can do soon, so we can get these going, so then you can have a proper evaluation? Or can we approve these pending, indicators to measure the goals?
But that's not what this resolution said, that's not what Felicia said. So if they want to show them, and I don't know if Felicia could guide us, but, the motion and the resolution is to approve these.
to approve the goals. Felicia,
So how will we?
if we approve the goals tonight, what is the consequence of doing so without having a poll or some sort of a, question?
Well, if you're approving goals and you don't really have indicators or way of success, I just don't know how you can really call it performance-based when you have no way of measuring his performance. So that's the first thing you want to look at is, how can I say we're approved, you know, he's in compliance with his performance-based contract if I can't measure what his performance is going to be? So I think that's the problem you run into. And I guess I would prefer that you didn't rush to do it, because, I mean, I know you're behind. I get that. And I know everyone wants to get it done, but you don't want to just rush and do it. I've never had a board that's approved goals without any indicators, without, you know, like I said, it's nothing wrong with the superintendent on his own coming up with goals and saying, hey, this is what I think, this is what I'm looking to do. And then the board giving him feedback. Him doing that on his own isn't wrong. Superintendents do that all the time. But then the board will have them, some feedback, and then they're like, okay. And then I think, do you have an idea on how you can measure whether this is being done or this is being done? And then, you kind of get to an agreement on that. But I just wouldn't advise you to approve goals without some way of measuring his success, because then it's not really, how are you, proving performance based, or, how are you be able to measure the performance of, what he's saying that he can achieve.
So what do we do now?
You can take the goals. I mean, you can have the goals, and then, what you guys can do, because see, what usually happens is then at the meetings, you guys, the the board and the sometimes the superintendent goes out and the board just discusses, the goals, amongst themselves on, this is, I think this is good, or how is this relevant to what we're doing? You just may want to have to, you'll have to do that at your next meeting.
So should we table it for now?
What'd you say?
Should we table it for now?
Yeah, I would just table it. I mean, because now you have them. You know what I mean? So now you guys can look at them and write your own notes, because that's typically what'll happen. Then you write your own personal notes, and then when you guys get back together, you talk about, exchange, like, yeah, this is good, or maybe change this one to add a little bit more to this, or I don't understand how this is relevant, but now you have them, so you have something to start with.
Well, Kristen, you came up with your own goals. Could you give everyone what you came up with, and then
We did. It's right here. It's in the resolution.
Could we do that?
I can't hear. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
It was for Chris, Lisa.
Yeah.
So we could just present it.
Yeah. Will you have email them too, or what?
Do you want us to email them, do you want us to?
Well, I'm not sure what your question
Well,
was.
everyone's gonna look at them, right, correct?
We have them now, yeah, they're in your book.
And then we'll go ahead and review it. Or say.
Well, no,
we can't do that until.
Are you talking about reading like the goals?
Yes.
Okay, but we haven't even done, an evaluation, and I know the end of the year.
But what I guess my question is, what are you doing about his goals evaluating his goals, his previous goals?
Well, we would evaluate last year, right.
But we
We haven't even done that yet.
So we would have to do that before we
Do this.
move forward.
But I mean, you can still, that doesn't stop you from still accepting these, and but you do need to keep in mind you've got to do that. I understand this for a shorter period of time, but you need to do it.
And maybe my question to Chris is that the goals that you put together with the help of the organization, are any of these in part or wholly, are they carried over from what you did last year because of what we had with the circumstances we had at the end of the year? I mean, really starting in March, everything blew up, and so that doesn't give you the full time to do that. So, to accomplish maybe all this. I guess I'm just looking to see goals in mind.
The board goals, again, just to reiterate.
Right, I know you didn't have the,
Yeah, I didn't last year, but yes,
okay.
strongly tied to what we did in the board.
The other part of my question, you're gonna email student performance, how we would be able to measure them?
I got a question for you, because I'm not sure if that's my decision to do or not. I think we can, asking is whether I would elaborate on the connectivity, to more detailed, benchmark measurements. Would I be appropriate in bringing those recommendations, or is that something?
Well, I'm looking for an explanation. I'm just looking for an explanation. These are performance goals, and it's just, performance, and I'm not sure to what degree that is. I would just like to know how fair, when the evaluation comes up, of how you feel that we would have a clearer picture of what your goal really is and what your expectations, what the board should expect. And that could get thrown to the side. Who knows if we're going to go back until next year, to the holidays, the whole semester. But we would, what the intent was, how the board would have to, of course, look at that, and then, they'll get their thoughts. Some kind of an evaluation of too.
So, but here's my question, evaluation. How can we evaluate, Chris? We didn't have any.
This
no,
There's nothing to evaluate on them.
and it's no measurable, I mean, look at.
As you said,
So do we
yeah,
move forward with the
so
still-
tied to what the result of our goals was, well, resolution from last.
Alicia's saying we have to evaluate him from last
I
year.
understand, but
We can't if he didn't have any.
You said you have to evaluate, I'm sorry, I can barely, you said, what was the question again?
So Chris did not have official superintendent goals last year because we met and made board goals, but we never solidified his superintendent goals. So how can we evaluate him on goals he didn't have?
So what goals did you give him, like, just as far as the board
He didn't
goals?
have any.
You said he had you said he had district goals or board, what goals did he have?
He had board goals, but he didn't have specific superintendent goals spelled out because we never met and did that.
Yeah. Well, you can look at your board goals just to say, you know, and here's the thing, you can't expect for him to have completed everything because, you know, it's just, you know, has he taken some steps to try and move toward that direction of, you know, that particular goal? You know, what did he do that would show, you know, that he took some steps or took actions that would be in the direction of achieving that goal? You gotta lower, you know, and I don't mean to sound bad, but it's not in the bad. You have to lower your expectations because you have to realize because of the timing and kind of how everything has happened, you know, he's not going to have 100%, you know, achievability with anything that, any goals given just because of how, you know, the timing of everything. You just want to be able to say, yeah, I could see he took some steps in that direction. This is what he did to, you know, achieve this goal, even if he didn't, you know, if it wasn't achieved, if he had been, you know, saying to yourself, if he had been given more time, he would have probably reached that goal.
Base it off of the board goals that we set up.
Yeah. Just because that's all you have. You didn't have the superintendent goals. So the only thing you're just evaluating his progress toward, you know, the board goals.
Okay.
The goals you got in here, Chris, are from what we are, you were there with us.
No, this is something different that he did with.
But let me tell you what I will do, and some of you may know it, but for those, even for the superintendent, there's a timing like a table where it has dates and months where certain things should be done, and I'll do that for you, just because I think it's good to have. Like I said, I don't keep track of when I don't know if you know, evaluations have happened or, you know, I just usually, unless someone specifically asks the questions, but I will send you like a timing guideline because it gives you the months that each thing should be happening.
Will you compare that to anything that IASB has?
Yeah, and honestly, it's probably on IASB's site. Like if you look up, I'm sure if you look up superintendent evaluation process or something, I'm sure those timelines will probably be in there. I just know them from doing, you know, from knowing it, but I bet you it is on the website. But like I said, I can still send you something.
And the board policy about board members. So Felicia, so I'm clear in my mind, it's okay to take a look at these. Chris is gonna send us some information, but we would not be voting on to approve them tonight.
Right. Because you need to have, you know, you've got to put your input in. You got, especially if there's I just think you need to also consider some indicators. So you can table it, and like I said, you can take them, write your notes down, and then at the next meeting, you guys can talk about it and flush it out. And those are usually longer meetings because you really do want to get it done, and you know, but if that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do.
So in the past, we've done a special meeting for that.
So would it be fair for tonight, when we, to ask Chris elaborate with some indicators and send it to us so we can analyze, and then we can come back with our questions and then
that's okay.
Final goals together with the indicators? Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah, you could do that, but you just got to make sure you're not exchanging, you know, violating open meeting, like talking about exchanging stuff. If he just wants to send a mass thing out to the board, so, you know, and everyone has it, and then you just take it and, like you said, write your notes, but as long as you guys aren't exchanging back and forth.
Right. No, I'm talking like personal notes. And then when we come back to meet, we can go over questions and whatnot, right?
Right, because it saves time, too. If you do it that way, you're saving time.
You can say that again, please?
If you do it that way by like having him to email and flesh out, then you're saving time when you know, the next time you meet, you will know that information already.
Okay, there's a link in the next meeting, so if you have a suggestion, should this go on the, August board meeting, or should a special meeting be scheduled?
You probably want to do a special meeting because you guys have pretty packed agendas, so maybe do it before your regular board meeting, and then that way you can have everything on the agenda for the board meeting.
Can we do the evaluation in that same meeting, that special meeting?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Evaluation at that special meeting, so we can wrap this all up?
Oh, you would just be dealing with that. Right.
So then we can do the evaluation and set the new goals at that same special meeting.
Correct. And then, yeah, you could. Yeah, absolutely.
Are you saying that we would hold an evaluation meeting for the superintendent in an open meeting? No, we're gonna do them at the same time. Goals are an open meeting.
So we have to go to special
Well, but a special meeting doesn't mean closed. I just wanna get that clear. It's closed. I think she means a special meeting. For the goals also?
To be open. Yeah.
I know that, and that's not what I got from what she said.
What I answered is we would have a special meeting, and then we'd have to go into closed session to do the evaluation, and then we come back to open session to do the goals, right?
And we can vote on the goal, the same special meeting, correct, Felicia?
She was trying to.
Well, I can, I'm hearing, I'm sorry, I'm going in and out, but with the summative performance review, usually, you can even have, there's even been situations where the board president will meet with the superintendent, so what'll happen is the board reaches a report, they'll reach an agreement as far as what the performance is. And then sometimes what'll happen, is the board president can meet with the superintendent privately to share the report, but then, the board and the superintendent meet, collectively as in a meeting, and then they, can approve the, whatever the review may be.
So his review.
Right.
Oh, okay, cool.
Are you saying, Felicia, are you saying that the board president is going to evaluate the superintendent?
No. After our meeting,
Yeah.
what results come out of that, I had to have a meeting with Chris with that result, or
Those
what.
are the results.
Yeah, okay, all right, so we have to have a closed meeting for the evaluation, and we have an open meeting, and it could be meeting.
And typically the board president, when they're meeting after you guys have determined it, it's only just because you just aren't sideswiped, he's not getting sideswiped with whatever, not to say that it's bad, but, he'll just say, this is kind of what we've come to, just to give you kind of a heads up. It's nothing wrong with doing that after you guys have, it's not like he's doing anything on his own. He's just kind of conveying what the evaluation is.
But we can't hold that before the August meeting, that's the August meeting. That's not
A couple
gonna,
of weeks or.
Remember we did, and I'm not suggesting this by any means, did it on a Saturday when we did the other one.
You can do it on a Saturday, yeah, you could. I mean, it's up to you. You can do it whenever you want to.
for a while.
Try to get it done and over with, maybe we should put it.
Well, let's analyze days of the week first. Well, let's continue.
We're
Let's close
tabling
these.
Yeah.
Okay, we know what direction we're going, so,
as soon as possible, we'll do the evaluation.
right. We got a first and a second, so we got to take the vote, right?
No,
because we're gonna
We're not
table it.
gonna vote it? Okay,
Right?
all right.
we have to move this to a meeting after the evaluation and his goals are done.
So do we
Of course, yeah, we're
Yeah.
not, I'm not trying to approve it, I'm just
Right.
saying, you know. what-
So right now, we will go ahead and table it.
Okay,
we have to make a motion to table it? No.
that's what I'm saying.
No, but you have to have a date, you just don't want to put it on the table, because then you don't ever have to pick it up. So we have to have some kind of an idea of when you want to vote on this, and, we'll take this up again.
So our next meeting's the 25th, right?
Well, do we need a date though, Felicia, or can't we just motion to table it at an upcoming meeting? I don't know.
You have to be kind of specific, because if you can like.
Wait, why did someone say you didn't want to table it? Why did you say that?
No, they want to table it, wondering if we need a specific date to table it to.
No, you don't need a date, because what happens is once you want to bring it back up, the first motion is a motion to remove from the table whatever, that exact motion was, and then you deal with the motion again. So you don't have to have a date, to table, because what happens is whenever you remove it from the table, that's the very first motion that you have before you address the actual motion again.
But it could a motion could stay on the table and never be taken off of it, that was my point. But if they want to put it on with the next meeting, that's fine, we have to come up with a meeting ahead of time, a meeting date ahead of time. And I'd like us to look at some.
You don't have to have a date, though. That's up to you. If you want to attach a date to it, you don't have to have one.
Continue with the table and then come back to it when we're set on a date.
And if we can
No.
schedule a special meeting.
Probably gonna happen, but.
It would have to be.
So the question is, do we want to go through the table process and then Star will coordinate the next meeting? Or do we, I think what Marge is saying is, I would prefer to set a meeting date now.
Well, I would like the board to have
We haven't
permission
had a
on the
look
meeting date.
and-
Sometimes we get a
and
meeting
time
date and we haven't been.
To go through the goals and everything like that, so
Right.
it's just not.
Well, he still has to send us something,
Right.
we really can't,
I think it's gonna have to be in September.
yeah.
September, right?
I think that's only fair to you too, it's just.
I think it's fair to.
Yeah, that's right, the meeting's next week, and the school committee can have all next week with training for teachers,
Right.
Okay,
well, we're moving on to,
So
looking for a
put this
motion
on
to
the
table
table
these,
until we schedule a meeting, is that what you're saying?
right, yeah.
Like the first or second week of September, so it's there.
I'm okay with that.
Well,
How about if I just send out some dates, a lot of dates, on
Okay.
Saturdays?
Please,
and
Please,
Sundays?
please ask us, because I really,
Oh, yeah.
well, this
we
special
all need
meeting
to
we're
be
at,
on the same thing.
sorry, that's not you.
Okay, do I have a motion for that, table?
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a
So
second?
I'm sorry, but just so we're clear, so it's a motion to table
Table,
the performance goals within the superintendent's employment contract?
right, table for now, right? I got a motion, do I have a second?
Okay, who, someone said first?
I motioned it.
Olivia
I'll second it.
Okay,
and Shannon, okay. Vito Campanelli?
And what is our question?
so table.
Table it?
Yes.
Yes.
Winifred Rodriguez?
Yes.
Shannon Johnson?
Yes.
Margie Visick?
Yes.
Sharon Anderson?
Yes.
Olivia Quintero?
Yes.
George Schwartz?
Yes.
George, will you send us out some type of like evaluation form, to evaluate them?
Well, good, yes,
Yeah.
we'll do that.
Yeah.
So then you get ahead of
Right.
whatever the meeting is.
Now we have to vote on the original motion, right?
No.
No,
Motion's on.
motion is taken off the
Okay,
table,
sorry.
so.
Put it on the show.
Moving on with action item B, I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution declaring an emergency and approving authorizing a contract with Gates Enterprises for access control systems for temperature detection services, devices, in an amount not to exceed $30,000 as presented. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Any comments?
I have a question. $30,000 to cover all the schools that were not to exceed?
Yes. There's one device that's being donated to us. The other one, we're,
So we have
that
one,
amount of,
5 need to be purchased.
correct.
And do you have any clue what the street value of these are?
The original price was $7,000, and then we got them for $6,000 plus the donation.
We're kind of like,
Okay.
went at it with them.
So, Chris, did you figure out, I mean, you organize when the kids start going back, they're little kids, I mean, with the HIPAA?
It does not state the amount, but it does record the number into it states, normal or abnormal, but it records the information for us so that's monitorable. You know, it does face recognition, but it's gonna go into our Skyward system. Therefore, for staff and students, and that is the purpose of them being there now, is so that we can begin this, and we wanted to avoid the idea of an individual doing it in the event you come across somebody with COVID and exposing them. So,
But I get it, but you're gonna have the machine here, so you can still have them 6 feet apart?
yes, upon entering, yes.
So I still have to practice social distancing.
Right, well, that's why we're trying to, it's a new normal.
I have a question. So I agree that having these machines would be helpful, but we have a fiscal responsibility as a board to follow the bidding process. Why is this being deemed an emergency?
Because we got our teachers coming in, that's the reason why. We don't want our teachers be exposed to a district that is not ready for them. I know we don't have kids coming in, and when we have our kids come in, then the rights are here. But the emergency is for teachers to feel comfortable coming in, for the environment. But with someone, have to go in the office, get copies. I don't want to be alone in there. I understand.
Hello?
Hi, I'm sorry, your voice is really coming in on your end. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it is. I'm sorry, because I'm in this appointment with my mom, so I'm sorry, but the emergency, usually you have to go through regular bidding procedures unless there's a determination. There's a provision that under Procurement Act that allows for you to determine that anytime it deals with health or safety, you can determine that, look, we can't wait for the bidding process because, of course, you got to come up with your specs, you've got to, publicize for so long. And so whenever there's a determination made that, we don't have the time to wait for the bidding process to play out because this is dealing with health, safety, the board determines that it's an emergency expenditure and therefore, you don't have to actually go through the bidding process. So,
Here's the other side. So you're requiring teachers to report. That was what you decided to do. So it really isn't an emergency because that doesn't have to be the option, number one. Number two, because it's only the teachers reporting right now, for sure, and it wouldn't take that long. I had to go to training yesterday, and that's what we did. It took 30 seconds to take my temperature. It should have had to write down my name. Out then, because, again, it's only the teachers coming in, and it's not the mass amount of students coming in. So I feel it is so you brought this up 2 months ago, of doing this, of having these machines, of having this temperature reading thing. August. Could have done this in June. We could have done this in May. So I cannot justify it being an emergency. Yes, we could definitely use these machines. Please, be responsible and bid it out. Maybe we can get it for $5,900. Legally, we have to take the vote.
But because it's an emergency, we don't have to do the bidding part.
Well, we have to decide it's emergency.
Well, I think the argument was being made that because, you know, with COVID-19 and temperature, of course, is the one thing that everyone is, you know, using to determine as a cursory, like if you know, are infected or not. That's why it fell within the conditions like of, you know, health, safety, security of individuals, loss of life, or, you know, to prevent interference with school sessions or to protect the health and security and well-being of the students. Like that's the language that's actually cited when you talk about emergency expenditures. That's a determination, though, that you guys, you know, would be making tonight to determine that. And I think that was the motive behind saying this was an emergency expenditure, because temperatures, everyone's buying these thermometers, you know, these scans or thermometers to be able to use as a cursory if this person could possibly be infected, you know, because that's what all this, you know, everyone's doing now. You know, whether you go into work or, you know, school, that's the first thing people are doing when, you know, they're taking your temperature.
We have other abilities to take temperatures besides the machine at this point. And also,
the fact that somebody has to
school districts are having them self-certified. We just hired 5 nurses. They can be there to take the temperature when the teachers come in the morning. There's no kids. So districts are requiring people to self-certify. And so the reason one of the nurses we just hired couldn't be doing that when it's just our staff reporting for now. And we can visit and then vote on it and make sure we're following the right procedures and then get the best, maybe this is the best deal. I don't know, but I know we have to.
And if we're, I have a couple of questions. First, how did we land on Gates? Now I'm hearing they gave us a free machine. First, you just said you were able to negotiate. And now all of a sudden you want us to sign off and on that commercial, the interview you did. This out, and we have a list of all the people who voted yes, and you know what? Everybody's scrutinizing everything. I don't believe this is an emergency, plus it doesn't look that they gave us a free machine. And now we're going with that company. Where did we get them from? And then my other question is, I thought you said something, or it came up during when we hired, the board majority hired QNS. I thought they were in control of all the technology. So are they involved in this? Because it goes into Skyward or anything?
No.
I just think that there are a lot of questions. We talked about this. You brought this up at least 2 meetings ago, which would have been time. And it's not all the kids coming in. 1 per building, I don't even know what that's going to do. I mean, we have teachers coming in to at least 2 parking lots at GW, at least 2. What about the people at other schools? Lincoln has a Custer entrance that teachers park at, and they also have their playground area wherever their parking lot there. That's at 2 way different ends of the building. Homeschool probably now, I don't know if aides are coming back or not right now, but they would probably be able to accommodate that. But then what are we doing for people who might walk in the front door? So bottom line is, I can't agree to something. I don't think it's an emergency. I think we could have could have handled it. And I have questions on why Gates. What were the figures from other companies? What other companies did you go to? And the fact that we're going to say now publicly, this is an emergency, so we can just bypass the whole bidding process, and these guys gave us a machine.
It looks bad.
It looks bad.
Chris, did you interview or with other vendors?
They reached out to us, we met with them, they came and presented the devices. At the time when they did, I wasn't aware of any other vendors at that time. As it started evolving, it became part of the discussion of, the teachers union was very in favor of this, very in favor of mandating, so to speak, not only the self-certification, which we're doing through Skyward, but also to require this. And it was it was at a time when there certainly were no nurses for one, and we didn't know what we were going to come up with. But nonetheless, that is why, this stuff is, you know, where we're at right now, those perceptions and knowledge evolved in a process that put us here to say, you know, with the teacher saying, you know, we do want to have this in place. I do stand by this as something that I believe, you know, it goes to a vote, and then that's, you know, appropriate to do what the board believes, but I do believe this is something that could save safety of staff at this time, and then help us monitor and track it as well. One big part of COVID-19 and the pandemic is symptom tracing, and this gets us to a point where it will lock in that information and track it for us, so we're not relying on a person to do this, write it down, or come up with a system of doing that, which can be done, but it comes with exposure. And
But those same people potentially are going out to eat, or they're going out to the grocery store, or they're meeting with friends. So I totally agree, there would be a risk, but, you know, if you're doing all these other things, I think if you're taking the same, especially a nurse, taking the same precautions that you'd be taking going grocery shopping or out to dinner, you definitely minimize your risk.
And plus, nurses are required to have N95 masks, they're required to have all that proper PPE per the declaration of everything going on. So they would have to be there by the machine monitoring this anyway. So they could easily do, and by the way, the temperature thing they did yesterday, they weren't even there. They were like, you know, further away, it's not like they're right here.
Wildfire did it on my wrist.
Yeah, they were able to go across and do it. So the students are not here, which I believe was the correct decision, and I give you props for sticking to that, because I know it wasn't easy. But the teachers can easily self-certify and easily, somebody can easily take the temperature, one of our nurses at that time. That's my opinion. Do I think we should get these machines? Absolutely, but I think we should follow the bidding process.
Chris, is this something that's reimbursable with all of the government stuff, or is this
That is
gonna
one of
come
the
this
reasons
week?
why we took that approach, because they're part of that. We're approved for
it is
this
being
one.
paid out of CARES Act money, yes.
So you have until September 22nd of 20th of 2022 to spend that CARES Act money.
Does the CARES Act tell you who you have to buy?
But we don't
want to wait that long.
No, absolutely not, but we have time now to bid it out.
Correct. I don't believe so.
It's a totally independent system.
Correct, but it is going to interface with Skyward, where it would
Okay.
store the information.
Here's some of the other pros and cons
And for
that we have to keep in mind.
contact tracing, it's a great
As
tool.
more and more schools start chasing this equipment, all of a sudden, we go out to bid.
Correct.
We're gonna be on a waiting list
The
for
machine,
6 to
no
9
one
months.
has to stand in the machine that actually scans you, and it goes through Skyward.
Correct.
As Marge was mentioning about the entrances, the schools have to, a lot of stores, a lot of companies, a lot of people.
They close one of their
They have
entrances.
one entrance.
And we have agreed
And
to
we have all the teachers only.
certify this way.
I don't see them having a problem walking a little longer distance.
But it's not a
Where
little
the weather
longer.
is
Here's another.
Well, let's bring it forward, what happens,
Let me finish real quick.
No one's saying, arguing against the equipment. The thing is that we had time to do this. I don't believe it's an emergency that would allow us to circumvent going out to bid. Especially now since we're going to, or in addition to, not especially, we're going with a company that gave us a free piece of equipment. So we're going with that, and we're.
Why does that necessarily have to be a bad thing?
No, we're saying we don't have to follow the law,
I
and
don't believe that the free piece of equipment
Yeah.
is something that we get if we don't do it. There's
Okay.
a package deal,
Oh,
we don't own it.
I'm not arguing that point.
No,
I'm
but-
just telling you how it.
Ms. Bryant, for a minute, can I have the floor for a minute? Thank you. One is, I know all about technology, card access, all these types of things. The longer we wait, the harder it's gonna be to get the equipment, because everyone's gonna jump on the bandwagon. Number two, the biggest reason I will vote for this is, you're gonna put this in place with staff and teachers, because there's gonna be bugs to work out in any kind of technology in the first trial run. It'll give us time to perfect it, give us that much more certainty that it's gonna catch anything with our children, and we've got the system working. Whenever you introduce a new system, there's a learning curve, there's a period of working the bugs out.
Well, anyways, when the
That's
kids
all I
come
can say.
back, there's gonna have to be a step to it.
And
for them
when
to
the
get
kids
out.
come back, if they do come back within the time that we're kind of forecasting, now we will have the time and the ability to go out for the bidding for a second round of this device, because everyone's gonna be looking for these type of things. And that saves people's time, and time means money, and we have the nurses, yes, there is. But if we don't have to expose anyone to hold these thermometers against the kids, we know how kids are.
Well, more so
Well,
the
I'm not talking
nurses,
about
maybe,
Yeah,
maybe
we're
we
not
had
supposed
somebody that
Well, yeah, we're not
they need
here
to jump
doing
in,
it, but that, we have to look at
containing it.
the future and making sure that we have these, devices in place, so when the kids come in, we're all ready for that. Not just with one entrance, maybe we have two, and we go for it, and then we see
But this-
everyone else try. We're not throwing this money away
No,
and spending money twice buying the thermometers, a bunch of them, and then buying these
They're not
things
very
when we
valuable.
need to, you know.
but the resolution,
That's the emergency type of deal with that.
nobody's arguing that we don't need it, but this resolution says, we're declaring it an emergency.
It is an emergency.
No, it's declaring on our part, it's not
Okay,
an
well,
emergency.
that's why we come here and we vote. Chris, I have a question, so the remote learning is for sure the first quarter, correct? Okay, when does the
Now,
first
there
quarter
will
end?
be, yeah, but we did state through the process that, you know, there are potentially some unique situations of homeless and
Sure.
profound
Right.
special needs that we would,
Correct.
look at a one-to-one basis, and the special ed team is sifting through that curriculum.
Absolutely, which is awesome, that's much needed. But in general, our hope is that this whole remote learning thing will only be through the first quarter. When does the first quarter end?
It's mid-October, I believe. I don't have the exact date
October,
right
so
now.
sometime in October. So then we have August to September. So we have a couple of months. We can put a bid in tomorrow, we can put a bid notice in the paper tomorrow or the day after, and we can start accepting bids. And if this company wants our business, they're gonna keep it at that price. It is what it is. So that's my opinion, but Olivia's right, that's why we're here about, so.
So, with this free machine, it's included in a package deal, or it's like, okay, I'm gonna give you a free machine if you come with me?
We
Yeah,
have
it
a
looks
free
like-
machine, and we are, right?
Do we, I'm not positive. I didn't interpret it that way. I thought it was, you know,
Five,
Five,
get
you
one free.
get six.
yeah.
What were those other machines that you showed to the Fox News? That you had,
Now, the presentation that we did had the presentation to the administration was the one that looks like an iPad, which is the, N9, I believe it's the N9. And then there was a smaller, more, remedial one, so to speak, that we were presented. They had the setup of the other ones there with the, metal detector, and then that one that can do a mass amount.
Yeah.
But we were never considering those ones.
but they were, oh, you weren't, that's not how it came across the news. So that, but all of the equipment was from, I do not have that news. They were all from the same company, is that?
Yes.
Yeah,
So you're not talking about the big metal detector thing?
We're talking about.
right, we're talking about it looks like an iPad.
Oh, that was,
And that actually tells you whether or not you have a mask, and that'll kind of, it is a great tool in my mind, when kids come in and they just, you know, sometimes. they're-
The one that looks like
that Told them, hey, you don't have a mask on.
hey, no doubt, it's a great tool. I'm not disagreeing.
And I know we're debating about the emergency, it is an emergency. We gotta test the equipment to see how it works, and there isn't a better scenario to do it with than with all adults. And so, we have to perfect and have these, I'm sure that these devices have some sort of calibration, that if they don't do certain things, we can have the company come and get them all set up for us. But when we have the kids, we're all ready for it. And that is my sense of emergency at least.
Takes 2 months for installation and.
The other device, yes, it's a lot less money, but on the other hand, doesn't do any record keeping. It just tells you what your temperature is, and it kind of just spells it out.
And the big one doesn't do the record keeping either.
Right, even that's
The big metal detector
Yeah,
one?
no, I'm glad you're not getting that. I
Well,
think
of
that was
course,
terrible, to be honest.
Basically, nothing.
Right, but,
Basically.
and like I said, I agree, having this equipment is a great idea. I am not arguing about that, so.
All right. Call the roll.
Okay, Winifred Rodriguez.
So what do we,
We're voting yes or no on this.
oh, there was a motion already?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna.
Why was all that?
Shannon Johnson.
No.
Margie Bissett? No. Sharon Anderson? No. Olivia Quintero,
Yes.
Vito Campanelli,
Yes.
George Torres.
Yes.
Alicia, are you on still?
I heard my name, but then I couldn't hear the rest. What did you say?
Yeah, I was seeing if you were on because, with this emergency declaration, then with the vote that just took place, I believe it does not pass. Am I correct?
Well, after you've approved it, then pretty much it's just, I mean, you make the purchase, and then, like I said, you have to make sure that you have and that's something you could talk about later, but the business office has to have a separate file for emergency expenditures, and it has to be, documented as to why it was an emergency. And I think I gave language to you regarding the conditions being a health, safety, something that's the result of circumstances which call for immediate action. And that's the biggest thing, that you're declaring an emergency because it's a circumstance which calls for immediate action because it deals with the health and safety of students, staff, and third parties.
I understand all of that, but what is the vote needed to make it pass? Because we just had a
What is the vote
4-3.
needed to do what?
What are the number of votes needed to have it pass through? Was that modified, was that different?
No. Because you need, no.
Yeah, read the resolution.
Wait a minute. Did you have a majority? You need a 2/3 vote. How many did you have?
4-3. 4-3, that's just a simple majority.
Yeah, that one, I'm remembering. If I'm not mistaken, that's when you actually do need the 2/3 majority.
It's the fourth whereas down in the resolution. It says whereas under the code, the district has the authority to exempt expenditures from competitive bidding requirements with an emergency.
No, actually, no, I'm sorry. That's not a 2/3, that's a 3/4 vote. Yeah, when you have an emergency expenditure, it's a 3/4 vote. I'm sorry.
So therefore, at this point, that does not pass, am I correct?
Correct. Yeah. That's correct. I'm sorry, you're right. For that particular expenditure, you need 3/4 vote, and you didn't have that, no.
Oh, yeah.
Great. Motion. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn at 7:08.
Can we start a bidding process
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Different?
Yeah. Olivia?
Yes.
Wonder for a second?
Yes. Okay, Tamara Dudas? Yes. Sharon Anderson?
Yes.
Olivia Quintero?
Yes.
Vito Campanelli?
Yes.
Ed Rodriguez?
Yes.
George Torres?
Yes. So,